to prevent the tooth to get fractured. So even in mature teeth, it's also important to keep the vitality of the tooth. And second objective is to keep the tooth natural repair ability. We all know that even injury or anything that you place on the pulp, it will give some degree of inflammation. But if the pulp maintains its vitality, it will have to have the healing more than the inflammation itself. Okay? So for my illustration, the odontoblast still have its function and it produces tertiary dentine, which is called reactionary dentin. If the stimuli is strong, sometimes the odontoblast is dead, and now they will send the signals to all the cells, the rest of the cells in the pulp. For example, dental stem cells come and help, okay, release the growth factors. These come and help, and then they'll differentiate it into odontoblast-like cells and produce what we call reparative dentin, this is like a repair process of the pulp. Okay. Let's look at the trend of VPT right now. You can see I search on the PubMed, and you can see there is a very rising trend of pulp therapy. In the last 10 years, there's a lot of high flow of publication. And I think there are reasons for that. Okay? There are major changes in 4 areas, which is karyology and pulp biology advancement, pulp diagnosis, material, and also expand growth of pulp therapy. This is, the change has not stopped. There will be change more in the future, which is going to give the VPT better treatment in the future. Let's start with the first one, karyology and pulp biology. In the past, if you remember when I was in dental school, even when I was Dr. Nationality students at University of Alabama at Birmingham, we have to remove completely both caries and pulp tissue, also called non-selective caries removal and pulp removal, or luxuriously called maximally invasive surgically based removal. But now, if you have heard of the concept, partially removal or selective removal, or luxuriously called minimally invasive, biologically based, quite long, right? Now the trend is coming, and also, but we still don't have consensus around this, and hopefully in the future we'll have more evidence and come to consensus and give us the guidelines. I'll show you a little bit more in detail about this. For deep caries, like I mentioned earlier, in the past we don't know much about it. We said caries is infectious disease from specific bacteria, so we have to remove it all. We don't have good material, only amalgam, which doesn't give us a good seal. And we remove it all. We have more exposures, okay? And now the concept, which is I think Dr. Pachauri will talk about this more in the afternoon at Hall A, selective caries removal, which consists of, for example, indirect pulp treatment, stepwise excavation, and this will reduce the pulp exposure. But the question remains, is pulp exposure really a negative prognostic factor for the treatment success? Because now we have, the development of calcium cement, which provide a lot, more better success with the vital pulp therapy. Okay, for extremely deep caries, yes, in the past, if we got the pulp exposure, we will do root canal. Direct pulp capping, partial pulpotomy is very limited to only like traumatic exposure or young permanent teeth. But now we have, a lot more development in bioactive materials. We don't have only calcium hydroxide anymore. So a lot of things has changed, In the past, non-selective pulp tissue removal, you got exposure to root canal treatment, you make the tooth dead, right? But the disadvantages of non-vital talk therapy because it's more difficult to do. The patient spend a lot of money on it, more invasive, which will lead to, more expensive restorations. And maybe if you don't be very good at it, you might give the patient more complications after root canal treatment. And also we understand more about pulp biology. Look at this picture from left to right. When I was in dental school, it doesn't matter if you get exposure from caries to root canal, in these four situations. But right now, if you think about it, why don't you just remove, the infected pulp and severely inflammatory infiltrate? But you can leave the mild inflammation and healthy pulp there. Okay, so maybe, not maybe, right now, what we are doing, in these two or maybe three picture on the left, vital pulp therapy can be done. Okay, and that will include direct pulp capping, partial pulpotomy, or coronal pulpotomy. That will decrease non-vital. Like I said earlier, there's still a lack of consensus about this. The survey around the world has shown a discrepancy about deep caries removal and also with the pulp removal. Like some people are saying even though you have very mild symptoms, they still do root canal treatment. So like I said earlier, hopefully we have more evidence and come to the consensus, and the clinicians can have the guidelines involved. Okay, even the big organizations like ESE, European Society of Endocrinology, recommend deep caries removal. On the other hand, the American Association of Doctors, they recommend doing only the complete removal, non-selective removal, to remove all caries and also visualize the pulp tissue. They have their own reasons to recommend each approach. Okay, and the second areas I want to discuss is the pulp diagnosis. If you think about it, if you're going to have good success, you will have to be able to determine the status of the pulp. But how do we do that? Since I was a medical student until now, we use science symptoms. We use sensibility tests like electric pulp testing, like PPT, or the cold test. And also radiograph is always a part of diagnosis and direct evaluation, meaning getting there, look at the tissue. We're still doing the same thing, right? But hopefully in the future we'll have advancement of vitality tests or molecular diagnosis, like when you get a checkup, and the checkup, you go to the hospital, get the blood drawn, and they can tell you, for example, I have cholesterol. Should we do that to our people? You should have about that. Also, this era or AI that's kind of a role in our life. You use iPhone, they can detect your face, right? Same thing, maybe computer is more capable than our eyes. They can detect something and doing the network. We'll show you a little bit later on, okay? Talking about diagnosis, that histologically is the best, is the gold standard, but you cannot do that because you have to extract and do histology evaluation to be able to determine the level of inflammation and infection. But what we are doing right now, we do it clinically and radiographically determination. Like I said earlier, this is just something that we practically use. But let's look at the histology picture from Rinpoche study. you see that, in reversible papyrus, when look histologically, there is only limited area of fibrosis. How about irreversible papyrus? You probably think, oh, this is bad, we're not going to do vital power therapy. But the study shows that, yes, there's some, disease, some necrosis in the coronal part, but when you go further down, several of them still have vital tissue, okay, look very normal. So should we give the pulp a chance? Just going there, don't just, go with the symptoms, because clinical symptoms may be a general guide for pulpal and periapical status, but it does not correlate well with the inflammation level, and it does not a reliable factor to predict the progression and prognosis of the disease. Moreover, 14 to 60% of irreversible papyrus doesn't have any symptoms. Okay, so, and periapical lesion. In the past, if the tooth has periapical lesion like this, oh, we're gonna remember automatically, oh, the tooth is dead. But now, several studies have shown that, yes, it increases the chance of the pulp necrosis, but it does not always tell you that, if the tooth have periapical lesion, especially in the immature teeth, that the tooth is necrosis. Okay, there are several studies that show that, periapical bone resorption can occur without total pulp necrosis, and that can happen because of the bacterial mediators, the inflammation nerve fibers, and also like cytokines, the pro-inflammatory cytokines. Okay? And this is a case report that we published from our group, and we did partial pathology in 9 years old with some kind of condensing osseous. We published the result 5 years, but the patient just recently came back, and this is the 9-year result. She still have very functional teeth without any symptoms and nice overall. Okay? And that's not only one case. Okay, we have a lot of cases. This is a 14. You can see that nicely. This is about 3 years that also have a nicely healed periapical area. And also this is a 6-year case. You see that condensing osteoitis disappear. Okay, so we don't test like I mentioned earlier, and cold test. Okay, this is just the surrogate of vitality. But to assess vitality, we have to do the direct evaluation, meaning get in there. The pulp is exposed, there's going to be a lot coming up. Bright, great, continuous flow, easy to stop, but still, controversies of what time should be okay for the bleeding to stop. But this is quite subjective, right? You have to look at the pulp appearance as well. If it's like a pale, necrotic like this, you have to look at that part. You cannot leave the dentin chip in the pulp. So in this picture, the only one that is correct vitality is this one that I have the green sign. Okay? And it would be better if you have, microscope or the blue to help you with the diagnosis. But this can be hard for beginners because it's hard to say, to look at the pulp if you don't have experience. And bright red for different people probably mean different things, right? So there's a room for errors in this area. So hopefully in the future we will have something advanced and more accurate in vitality tests, for example, like pulse oximetry, laser Doppler photometry, and and dual wavelength spectrophotometry. This is ongoing research right now. And also, can we do that like I mentioned earlier? Like Dr. Ananda just said, about pregnancy, get the biological fluid, the blood, have the lab test, and tell us the level of inflammation with the biomarkers. And what also only study is the NP9. Okay? Show you here. We're talking about the NP9, which hopefully in the future we'll be able to do that chair side. And talking about AI, artificial intelligence, this study, they look at how to diagnose deep caries and periapical and pulp hypo. And they look at different models of the neural network and run it, and compare to dentists. You can see right here one of the models. The ResNet plus C, they have better accuracy, precision, sensitivity, and specificity compared to dentists. Because like I said earlier, there's something that maybe we cannot do, but computer can. So this is an area that in the future will come. So let's to discuss about the material. Remember, our kids, make pulp and use the natural. So, if we want to have a repair, to promote repair, have pulp, which should have healing bioactivity to help the pulp repair itself, but not too much to cause complications of liberation of pulp. And of course, antibacterial and also compatibility. Okay? And also physical properties, if it has a good one, that will also help with the healing, prevent contamination of the bacteria. So we want to both heal and seal. That gives us the best for the material. Okay? In the past and until now, we rely on material to help us repair the pulp. And in the past, when I was a dental student, calcium hydroxide. But right now, I think in the past 10 years, it's calcium silicate cement. Everybody must know it by now. MPA, biodentin, and Graco MPA, and so forth. But in the future, we hope that we'll use cell molecular based but not repair anymore. This time it's going to be regeneration. All right, so let's talk about calcium silicate cement a little bit. Some people call it hydraulic dental cement because it needs water to set. Sometimes they call it bioceramic or bioactive indolent because it has bioactivity. Okay, several brands in the market. I believe you have Pro-Root NPA, I believe you have Biodentin, okay? There are other brands around the world. And, there are several systematic reviews and meta-analysis out there, but all, come into same conclusion. Dr. Ananda explained about systematic review earlier, so I will just for the result of it, okay? They point out in the same direction. There's no question about it that calcium silicate cement is doing a lot better than calcium hydroxide. Some studies show like 2 times better. Some studies show 3, 4 times better. So there's no question about it. No wonder ESE and AAE now they agree. Okay, in this point of view that only calcium silicate cement should be recommended right now. And of course, because calcium silicate cement promote healing and cause less pulp inflammation. So the pulp can survive better. And how do we measure that? When or the blood is injured, they're gonna induce stimulation, the growth factor released from dentinal tubules. One of them is TGF-beta1. And you can see from this slide that, dentin and FT8 produce more TGF-beta1 compared to calcium hydroxide. And Professor Tran, I think he's from Ho Chi Minh, he showed in his study that, compared to calcium hydroxide, NT and biodentin doing a lot better with in the past. Dentin rich porosity, a lot less than calcium hydroxide. And Rikushi later showed in this picture, he did direct pulse capping and getting there again and take the picture. Can you get which one is from calcium silicate and which one is from calcium hydroxide? Okay, you see on the left one is homogeneous, smooth, calcified barrier, but on the right one, not so good. So this is a very nice picture. Your picture looks like, and we did direct capping and compare MTA to biodentin published in 2018, and you see both of them are doing well because basically they are the same material. But biodentin came out later, so they improved some properties, physical properties like increased setting time, and they said less discoloration. But we'll talk about that later, okay? And this is some of the cases. This is 8 years after direct pulse capping. This is 6 years after direct pulse capping. Still maintain functionality very well. And we talk about the pulse sensing material, but talk about the irrigant. Which one should be used? You can download this paper free. You can take a picture and then search it later. This is published in our school, our university journal, Medical Journal, and it's all in English. If you're interested, you can kind of submit the paper for us, okay? And let's look at the properties that we need for the vital pulse therapy. Of course, we need antibacterial, we need biocompatibility, and it would be nice if they have bioactive property, because we're talking about the repairability, right? And no adverse effect on food structure, so they can bond with composite or other material that we're gonna do the restoration, and hopefully no discoloration. You can see from this table that the most commonly used is sodium hypochlorite, but it doesn't give you, all the property that you need for vital pulse therapy, right? Glycine, same thing, doesn't give you everything. Saline doesn't have antibacterial, but biocompatibility is pretty good. This is sodium hypochlorite and saline probably is the most commonly used in vital pulse therapy studies. But EDTA, which we all know that it has no bioactive properties, it can induce the release of growth factors. This probably maybe the one that will be most appropriate for vital pulse therapy, but we're gonna have to wait and see. All right. Because sodium hypochlorite and saline is the most commonly used, but studies show tolerance between them, but not studies were talking about American, talking about but this time you can see that sodium hypochlorite is really better than saline. But this is right? Okay. This study remove pulp, do not remove pulp, right? So in because you are removing the infected or severely inflamed pulp tissue, the reduction and give the comparable results. Okay, so let's talk about EDTA. EDTA is used in regional with the well classified probably wrong. Okay, EDTA we use that for region. You can see one of the outstanding problems is to induce release of growth factors. Okay, and the studies look at the yellow bar is sodium hydroxide and the orange bar is the EDTA. Look at the cell migration and cell viability. You can see that the orange bar EDTA is doing a lot better than sodium hydroxide. So this is probably that we want, when the pulp is doing the repair. We're talking about several good things about calcium silicate, but there's still some disadvantages of calcium silicate. Long-acting NPA, they have sensitive pulp and water ratio, and sometimes kind of hard to handle. Okay, and also something that people are concerned a lot about is the pulp calcification, because we talk about this is the repair process, right? It's the scar tissue is not a dentin. It doesn't have a tubular structure. And more importantly, it's not specific enough. We cannot control how it's going to go. You can see from here. You see, after osteoporotomy, 3 years, you can see there's some pulp calcification in that. So if this patient, I don't know, for some reasons, we need root canal in the future, that would be hard. But we don't know. This vital probably has not been long enough, to give us that information. But hopefully we'll know that in the future. And this correlation, there's some new generation of calcium silicate cement that we kind of claim that they cause this correlation. It's not only part of this in corruption cause like American, especially sodium hydroxide, and the time that you follow and the you've got pulp exposure, of course you're gonna get a lot, right? So that's one main contributing factor that you're gonna get a discoloration. Let me show you this picture. We use from NPA, can you guess? The top row, that is use sodium hydroxide. And the bottom one, even though in the lab, there's no blood in the lab, right? So they said saline doesn't cause discoloration. But in this picture, you can see because in real clinical situation, you got blood. So it also causes discoloration right here. Okay, so I would say don't promise the patient, especially in the contour, and if you get discoloration, don't worry. It's a chance you did not do anything wrong. Okay? And there's another study from our group. We did partial pathology in vertical, and you can see even with biodentin, there's still almost 30%, but a lot less than FDA cost, like 80% of this correlation. But we did not measure the level, the degree of this correlation. Like ultimate outcome, yes or no, that's all. So this is a picture of a study. You see here, there's some gray correlation of biodentin as well as proliferative. Okay. So hopefully in the future, instead of put something that going to stimulate the release of growth factors, why don't we just put growth factors in the pulp, or put something more specifically that going to produce the regeneration? Okay, so that's been ongoing research about this. Somebody already used this, the platelet-rich fibrin platelet rich plasma. We use this in other areas of medicine as well. And the interesting result here is that they show that, for the PRF, they cause less pulp canal obliteration compared to calcium citrate. So this is very interesting because it's autologous, cells. It has growth factor in the PRF that helps with this is the top row. You can see obliteration compared to the biothermic and hydroxyapatite. And like we mentioned earlier, okay, hopefully we will be able to use biological scaffold with cells, or without cells, or with the growth factors that will help with the repair or regeneration of the pulp. And this paper is also from the University of Alabama in Birmingham. And you can see here, we're talking about myodentin, growth factor, myoblastocyst, which is, in the material categories. And we're talking about cells that maybe will use the scaffold cells for vital therapy. But interestingly, you can see the exosomes here. If, the cells going to call each other to come and help, why don't we use the exosome to have, to make the cells better communicate with themselves? So that will help with the regeneration, maybe, okay? And also the physical stimuli. This is very interesting. The low level of laser and also the shock wave. Have you ever get a shock wave? I have a problem with the back pain and shoulder pain, and I got a shock wave, and that stimulates the healing, the repair, and it works magically. Okay, if you never try one, you can try it. Okay, so you can see that there's a lot going on, and what we are doing right now is getting better every day. So that comes to expand the growth of vital. Like I tell you, as we really like what because you have other choices. One is to have complete root formation. Or we can make electron culture and or reverse non and only the tooth is normal and issue. But we have advanced something more challenging, like I've shown you earlier. And this is some of the cases, partial autonomy, multiple capacity. We ask why don't we do a autonomy? Because we want to preserve healthy as much as possible. And that show very good health. Doesn't matter what it is, okay? This is some of the cases from our study. And also, I co-authored with Nesrin Taha in the biodentin book. And in the chapter of the biodentin applications in irreversible hepatitis in children and adults. You can see here, same thing, convincing osteoitis, 17 months after partial autonomy. Oh, I talk very fast. I will use 30 minutes. Okay. And how about young and old teeth? Now I changed to a very small case. Okay. Can you guess which one is the young permanent teeth? Which one is the old one? The left one is the young permanent teeth, right? The left one is the old. For the old teeth, there's some decrease in channel volume. Of course, the dentin has produced more. The dentin is thicker, right? The pulp channel volume is smaller, and that leads to less cells as well, either blood, fibroblasts, or mesenchymal cells. And that will also lead to, because they are old, it will lead to increase in repair capacity and defense potential. But, several studies have shown conflicting results. Some people say age has influence on BPT success, but a lot more right now show that it doesn't matter how old you are, you still can get success with vital therapy. And they do that from 6 to 85 years old. So I still have the chance with vital therapy, okay? Damashko, which is the one who published a lot about vital therapy, also showed that age plays a subordinate role regarding vital success. If you are looking good, age is probably not that important. And our colleague also published in the Journal of the Dental Association of Thailand. You can download it for free. Okay, this is 50 years old, and this is the result after partial economy for about 2 years. It's still there. She has done a lot of wells, but unfortunately, some papers are in Thai, so I'm not going to show it here. Okay, and for the umbrella review, which is this is like put all systematic reviews together, and the result is the same thing here. You can see that restorative material, periapple status, final irrigation, and age that we're talking about did not affect the treatment outcome. So basically, if you correctly evaluate the pulp tissue right, you give the pulp environment, which is bioactive materials, that will help a lot with the success. And there's a lot more challenging cases publishing recently. For example, you find this one very interesting. Now, for one root, we do a regenerative endodontics on the meso root because they still found vital pulp tissue. So they did, for each root, they did different treatment. Okay, and look at that. There's a lot more and more of this kind of cases coming out. Okay, another one. As Asian, we see a lot of dense evacuators, and in this case, you see that there's a periapical lesion. Once they open it up, get in there, you still see the bleeding, right? Right, wait, bleeding, continuous flow, you see some stop. So they did only a phlebotomy. I don't remember, maybe with MTA or something calcium solution. You can see the nice result as well in this test report. And this paper is from India. They did a study comparing doing root canal treatment, and the other group is root canal combined with vital pulp. They go beyond. Okay, each root have different treatment. For example, in this picture, this root have the isolation, they need a root canal. So this root still have vitality, they need vital pulp. And the result, you can look it up, the result is very nice for both of the treatment. We also, try something like not conventional as well. Okay, in this picture, you can see here, the patient first come in with condensing arthritis. Okay, we did partial phlebotomy, direct pulp capping, direct pulp capping, and the patient disappeared, and filling, came out, and when the patient came back, you can see that actually the root is already, healed, right? But we don't know for how long that the restoration has been lost. So one of my students placed the stylus crown on it because it looks okay at that time, but we don't know actually there's maybe some contamination, all restoration and pulp dressing material has been lost for a while. And the patient came back again. Look at that. There's a periapical lesion. But with the test, sensitivity test, and also direct evaluation, we get in there, we still, she has positive cold test. We get in there, we still see the vitality of the pulp. So we decide to still doing vital pulp therapy, but with coronal polymy this time. Okay, can you guess? It will go better or worse? And of course, it's going to go better. Otherwise, I'm not going to show it here, right? Okay, you can see after polymy, the periapical lesion disappear and the tooth become like normal again, function like used to be again. So we have, some cases like this that we kind of expert work on it and want to see how it goes. Okay. So I think Vietnamese are into Korean idol as well, and I'm a fan of BTS. So the title of my lecture is also inspired from them. Okay, they're singing, the past was honestly the best. What we have are quite good already, but I hope the best is what comes next. So please wait and see. A lot of change are coming, and please stay tuned. Okay, thank you very much. Cảm ơn.